Greetings. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to the Positivologist is in the house. Come on in, sit in your favorite chair, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and get ready for a really inspiring conversation about living a life of positivity. If you'd like to connect with me after the show, you can do so at www.positivebliss.com. So this is a show that focuses on living your life from a positive perspective. And that's not to say that it's always easy. We all have challenges, or some days are harder than the other. But we also have the chance every day when we wake up to decide what kind of a focus we're going to have during that day. And it's just as easy to decide to walk down a path of positivity as it is down a path of negativity. So I strongly encourage people to give it a try. If you fall off the positivity wagon, you can get back up and keep moving forward, because that's what I do. I don't stay there 100% of the time, but I keep walking down that path. So I am really blessed and honored to have this show as a platform to talk to amazing people who are walking a path of positivity. And you are definitely, I promise you, going to be inspired by our conversation tonight. We're going to be speaking with Reverend Patricia Brooks, and Reverend Brooks is a friend of mine. We've known each other for some time now. We both also graduated together from One Spirit Learning Alliance. We are ordained interfaith, interspiritual ministers, so that was an amazing journey that we were able to take together. And a shout out to One Spirit, because it's really a great place. So Patricia is going to talk to us about living a purposeful and divine life, and who would not like to do that? Who wouldn't aspire to that? She's going to share some tips on how to do that. She's going to talk about her journey, which again I think is going to be really enlightening for all of us. So I thank you for being here, and I am just pleased as can be to welcome my friend Reverend Patricia Brooks to the show. Hi, Patricia.
Hey, Lynette, how are you?
I'm great. You looked beautiful as always.
Thank you so much. The same.
So wonderful to see you, my friend. Before we dive into this conversation, which I'm really looking forward to, and we have a bunch of questions we're going to also talk about, I'm going to turn it over to Patricia for a few minutes and have her tell us about herself, some things she'd like us to know. Don't leave anything out about how wonderful you are, because I know, so be sure you share it with the audience. And also, Patricia, if you can, at the top of the show, tell people how they can reach you and connect with you after the show, if they'd like to do so, if they'd like to work with you or buy one of your great books. And we'll also, at the end of the show, we'll be sure and have you share that information again. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you. And again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much, Lynette. It is such a great honor to be on your show. So who am I in this part of my purposeful life? Well, I can tell you that I am a sacred storyteller, that my life to this point has brought me to that realization. And it's such an amazing and beautiful realization, you know, when you receive clarity at different parts in your life. So my life has been very purposeful. I have done many different things that have led me to this point, led us to meeting each other, led us to seminary, and led me on the path that I'm on now. And what I realize is that my purpose now is to be a storyteller, to not only tell my sacred stories, but to be a voice to help others tell theirs.
Okay, awesome. All right, so Patricia, how can people reach you after the show?
Well, I have a couple of different websites. My main one is patriciabrooks.net, and I also am a host on my telesummit series, Sacred Stories, which is another platform that I use to tell help spiritual teachers and healers share their abilities and tell their stories. And that's sacredstoriestelesummit.com. So either way, you can reach me.
And I encourage people to check out the Telesummit. She has amazing guests on there. So go to that site and hear some more inspirational, insightful input from a whole variety of people. So yeah. I love the title of what we're going to talk about today, the purposeful and divine life. So when you say live a purposeful life, what does that mean? How do you describe that?
Well, you know, I think it's so important, and I think it's such a big distinction, because what I find is that Most people are trying to find their purpose, and they seem to spend their whole lives, or a great part of them, chasing something, looking for a goal. And a lot of times it can be very frustrating, can be very, a futile type of a search, when instead of acknowledging and honoring and understanding that every phase of your life or every part of your life has a purpose, and to live and bring to each day the fullness of who you are. So your life is the purposeful life. There's not one grand purpose you're looking for.
So I think that's very interesting you say that, because I think sometimes people might be living certain pieces of their life and think that it's not purposeful because maybe they haven't gotten to whatever that particular goal is or whatever that big dream is. But I always think that that there's no like wrong path you go down. You learn something from each piece of that path, even as you're working towards what it is you're trying to ultimately achieve.
Right. Oh, absolutely. But it's even more than that, because you can say there's no wrong path and there's beauty in every experience, but people are still chasing that thing, right? That what they're supposed to be when they grow up. I think we set ourselves up for this a life of frustration on a lot of levels, because we even ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Instead of just enjoying, how many times do we can't wait to get to the next thing because it's supposed to hold some promise, and we're not really acknowledging and living and loving every aspect, and realizing that every part of our life is just as important as every other part. One is not less than, because we're not at this pre-created goal that we sometimes
Right.
think we have to get to.
Now that you say that, it reminds me of sometimes a person might think at a certain age, oh, I want to be I'll just say a lawyer. Nothing against lawyers. I'm just using them as an example. And let's say they get into it, and then they're like, I don't really know if this is what I want to do, but they feel obligated because they started down that path, or that's what their spouse or their parents think they should do, and so they just live, year after year doing this thing that maybe at some point was intriguing and engaging, but it's not fulfilling them any longer.
I can't tell you how many people I talk to. So I'm 54, right? So my generation, my
Can I
peer
just
group.
say that you look fabulous for 54?
Well, thank you. Um, so having said that, though, I will tell you there's many people in my peer group that I can't tell you how many times they talk to me and they say 10 more years, 10, 11 years to retirement. When I get 60 or 65 or 70, then something magical I think is supposed to happen, but they actually talk about doing time until then, or being, stuck until then. And they're literally just, the years are just moving away because they're waiting for something else. Or even back it up generations, and the person who's in college or the young adult who is starting their career, I I just think we do ourselves such a disservice when we're chasing one thing in our life. We're grander than that. We're more magnificent than that. To go to the divine, purposeful life, we're beautiful, powerful, magnificent divine beings. We limit ourselves when we pick one thing.
Well, and that is true for whatever age we are, because I also encounter people who are like, oh, I'm 40, so now I can't do that. Oh, I'm 50, now I can't go dancing. Oh, I'm 60, now I can't dye my hair purple. I mean, so I
Right.
think we limit ourselves too with that age. Or, oh, when I retire, then I'll travel. I remember I'm much younger. I was like, I did a lot of traveling because I'm going to experience it now. I don't want to, you know, I want to wait.
Right.
I want to live life in the moment. So,
Well,
go ahead.
oh, and I was just going to say, something that I realized, which actually kind of put me on this path, was that I have, without realizing it, been reinventing myself every decade. And my 20s were very different than my 30s. In my 30s, I actually graduated college eventually in my 30s, but I had a career as a computer science person. I did computer programming. At 40, I decided that, I didn't want to do that any longer. So I quit my job. I went back to school. I got my master's in education. I became a teacher. I taught for 10 years. At 50, I said, I was led to a different path. So I just, without realizing it, have been following, I think, what I would consider my heart, right, or divine guidance my whole life. And it just brings me to one thing to the next. And it's awesome.
Look where you are now. So, is there a difference between purposeful life and your life purpose?
Absolutely. I don't know that we have a life purpose. I think we have life purposes. I
Hmm.
think that we come for many reasons and we can do many things. I think, again, when we think life purpose, we limit ourselves. We're pigeonholing ourselves. We're creating this tiny little box that somehow we have to fit in. And once we fit in it, we better hope we love it, because that's all we think everything was about.
Hmm.
How sad is that? I mean, if you think about it, we are, again, powerful, beautiful, sacred, divine beings. Why in the world would we come here, incarnate to this three-dimensional world to pick one thing to do and put ourselves in that one little box? It doesn't even make sense if we really look at the larger picture.
Right, right. Yep, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I know that you're a very spiritual person. You're committed to your spiritual journey. Can you share a little bit about when your spiritual journey really started, or for many of us, there was some catalyst or something happened that really, some aha moment that really said, oh, yes, I am committed to this journey. What was your journey like?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I just want to say that that's even more reason. You're right. Most people have a catalyst or an event or something that stands out to them that actually might put them on a new path, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how like frustrating or upsetting or confusing life can be if we think that, oh my God, this thing that I worked for my whole life, now that doesn't mean anything any longer. Now that's not there any longer. For me, the catalyst for me was an unexpected divorce. And, it wasn't even it really sent me into a spiral. It really sent me into um, something that was really unexpected, because I found myself in a depression. I found myself in a really, really hard place emotionally that I didn't understand and I didn't expect. And it wasn't necessarily because I was so heartbroken over the loss of the relationship. What it did is it brought up all these feelings that I think everyone has, of self-love or self-worth, or what's this all about, you know, um, to begin with. So imagine if at that point I was really felt that I only had one path and one purpose to do, and then my life got turned upside down on top of it. Imagine what that could have done to me and does to so many people. So an unexpected divorce, a breakup of the family, a depression, it sent me searching for much deeper answers, because my pain was so great. And the answers that I had, the framework that I was working within up to that point in my life, it didn't work any longer.
And so where did you search? You said it sort of sent you on this search, this quest. Where did you look, and how did you know where to look?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I've always been very religious. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I always had a very deep belief in God and my angels, and that there was more to me than me. But I found that that wasn't enough any longer. I found that that relationship with something outside of myself was not enough to heal the pain within me. And so I went to my angels. I said, I went to God. I said, you have to help me. You have to help me. I can't do this by myself. And that did. It helped me to start reaching out. I was very, very lucky that where I was living at the time seemed to be a budding spiritual community, and it started with the angels. It really did start with the angels, and looking for some guidance, looking for some understanding, ultimately leading me to seminary and many amazing spiritual experiences along the way.
Ah, well, when you say angels, I just go, ah! We just know how incredible and amazing they are, and I think we both would just want to remind all the viewers out there that the angels are there for everybody, and it's not just special people that get to connect with the angels. It's for we're all special, so we all have that potential connection, and to really encourage people to reach out to them. Um, are there some earlier experiences in your life that had led you to do the work that you're doing now?
Well, it's really fascinating because upon reflection, I didn't realize it until I started looking back, but that actually ties right in with the purposeful life, because without realizing it, when I was following my heart all these decades of my life, I was actually learning skills or getting experience. Like, for example, I spent 10 years as a computer science programmer and then teacher. And at this point in my life, and I'm in my doing spiritual work, and I have my telesummit, and I'm on social media, I have my website. I find that all of those computer skills that I learned before are coming in very, very handy. Before that, I was a public speaker. I was a corporate trainer. I've done Toastmasters and Dale Carnegie and Train the Trainer and all sorts of public speaking, never realizing that I'll be using a decade later, but all of those skills have really come in handy now. Even teaching, relating with different people and learning different things are helping me now. So I think what we find, if we really look back and reflect on, we realize that every aspect of our life, when we are following our heart, will always connect or lead to the next part of the path. And that's just a beauty in that.
Even if we don't know it at the time, I mean, if we can't literally see 10 years from now, to just sort of trust that that's an important part of the journey. So go ahead, Patricia.
I was just going to say, I think what's really important is that people, if they can just kind of step into their sacredness or stand in their sacred power and realize that they are so much more than what they see in the mirror. Because if we can, again, go back to ourselves as those powerful, beautiful, magnificent, sacred beings, what isn't here for us, or why can't it be as magnificent as we want? We're not small. We're not the small beings that most people make themselves out to be. So I go to that when I need that little bit of confidence boost, or a shot of courage, or something like that. Or I'm having just a tough day. I go back to my center. I go back to who I am, and I say, I am a magnificent, powerful, sacred being. I got this. I'm not here for the minutia. I'm not here for this, the daily dribs and drabs of stuff. It's bigger than that. I'm bigger than that. And so is everyone.
Everyone is, yeah. So, Patricia, do you have a series of daily or regular spiritual routines or rituals that you do to help you stay connected to spirit?
I wish I could tell you that I did. I wish I could say, yes, I'm so disciplined and I do everything right, or everything by the book. But what I find is, I really don't. I think it's a practice. I think that, like everyone else, there's a consciousness. One of the things that I have been doing really consistently is being much more mindful of what I'm doing. I actually moved, I'll tell you, I moved to Florida, and I moved to a place that I can, I can bike or walk everywhere. I purposely didn't take a car, and everybody thinks I'm crazy because I didn't take a car, but I am really trying to show up with a greater consciousness of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, when I'm doing it, even to the point of I have a structured water device now that helps change the energy in the water. It's just a healthier water. But I have to pour my water through it every day. Actually, I guess that's part of my practice. Before I would just forget it after a day. I'd be tired. I'm like, it's not fast enough. Now I really, really mindfully, purposely, consciously pay attention to everything I'm doing. That's probably the best spiritual practice I can tell you that I have.
That's a wonderful one. So, Patricia, tell us, so you were teaching computer science for 10 years, and then you woke up one day, or maybe it took a week or a month, and said, you know what, this is no longer the path, and you left it, and then you've really been able, from what I can tell, to work full-time on your spiritual path. What advice can you give people who are, because, I'm one of those people, I'm doing lots of amazing things, but I've been a little hesitant to make that big, huge shift, because people have fear for one reason or another, security, money, whatever it might be. So is there advice that you can give to people to help them just to really take that leap of faith or leap of whatever you want to call it, to really completely delve into living their most purposeful divine life?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The other day I wrote trust, a leap of faith, or a calculated risk. And it's like when I was looking, actually, it's been a couple years now. I quit my job again. So at 40, I quit my job. At 50, I quit my job. And I went to seminary. I wrote a couple books. I was being very strongly divinely guided. And I actually kind of just said, I have to do this. I can't do anything else. That doesn't mean, and I was a single mom, kids, getting ready to go off to college, a mortgage to pay. It doesn't mean that I just threw everything to the wind and just said, okay, I have no money, but God will provide. I mean, I think at some point we just have to be responsible. But I was able to say, I can do this. I can do this. I don't have it all figured out right now, but I know enough in my heart. I feel that calling in my soul that I have to follow it. I have to see what happens. And what really helped me do that, to be quite honest, was somebody said to me once, what, if you do it and it doesn't work out exactly how you think it's supposed to work out or how you're planning, then you adjust. Then you just, you make an adjustment. But you keep moving forward. So to be quite honest, my spiritual journey, when I quit my job and what I thought was supposed to look like, it looks very, very different. But what's really fascinating is so many things that I never even thought of have started, manifesting or happening or opportunities arising when I really just allowed myself to be open to them. So the best thing that I can say to everyone is, I'm not saying throw everything to the wind, but don't concentrate on why it can't happen. Concentrate on what you want to happen. My brain never goes to all the reasons something can't work. I acknowledge what could be potential obstacles or things that I have to work through, but they're simply things I have to work through. They're not things to stop me from doing it. I'm always focused on how will I accomplish what I want to accomplish. And given a healthy dose of confidence and knowing I'm divinely supported, but also knowing that if it doesn't look exactly how I thought it was to look or wanted it to look, then I'll adjust. Right. And I'll keep moving forward.
Right. I think that's a really important point, to keep doing something. Keep pushing forward, keep doing something.
And, I honestly, Lynette, like what has come up and shown up, I never anticipated being a telesummit host. I have a very successful telesummit now. If you had asked me 2 years ago when I quit my job, would that be part of my spiritual path? I would have said, what's a telesummit? I don't even know what that is. And now I'm a successful telesummit host. I'm also starting a nonprofit foundation. If you had said to me 2 years ago, well, maybe you should start a nonprofit, I'll be like, what are you talking about? Why would I start a nonprofit? I'm actually having my first board meeting Monday evening. My nonprofit is happening, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I think that is really a great shout out when people don't have the confidence to do something, to say, you're probably only seeing this tiny little part of what it can be. There's so much more that can show up and happen, and I'm truly living testament to that, because I thought I'd quit my job, I'd write my book, right, and that would be it. And I did write my book. I've written 2 books so far. My third is almost completed, but in addition to that, I've had a successful radio show. I have a successful telesummit series. The nonprofit is starting, and who knows what's going to come up next? I don't know. We'll just keep. Yeah, we'll just keep showing up and being the powerful, magnificent, sacred beings we are, and and working hard, right? Doesn't mean we're not working hard. Yeah. But it I think that goes without saying, right? And then really just stepping into our power. I like to think of it as the fullness of our divine expression. Let's just do it. Let's just bring it. That's what we're here for.
Are there any baby steps for people? So I know you may have met, I've met people who, they don't know what their purpose is. They don't know what their, I always like, what's your mission in life? What's your mission statement? I'm always talking about people, corporations and businesses have a mission statement, but very few people I know have a mission statement. So often I'll have people, okay, well, what's the mission of your life? So if you encounter people who just really don't even know, what advice would you have just to get them started, even just some little baby step?
Yeah. Well, you just made it that big mission thing again, right? And so I'll say it doesn't have to be the big thing. You can just say, where am I now? What speaks to my soul now?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just do that. I think that what happens is that people become paralyzed or overwhelmed with fear because we make it so big. So the
Mm-hmm.
first step I'd say is don't make it so big. Don't make it so big. Like even when my kids were going to college, even when I was a high school teacher and my students were planning for college, a lot of them were immobilized with panic and fear because what am I supposed to do the rest of my life? And I'm like, why does it have to be the rest of your life? Why would you frame it that way? How about what speaks to my soul now? What do I want to do now? It's never a waste. It's an experience. There's study involved or learning or experience involved. Nothing is a waste. So the baby step I'd say is don't make it so big.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do now, today, tomorrow, for the foreseeable future? What could make you happy? What could fulfill your soul? That would be the first step.
I think that's good. And I think that might be a shift for some people's thinking because I think people do think maybe because the way society is set up, we got to figure it out. This is why I think like many people by a certain age. Well, by the time I'm 30, I will have done this. By the time I'm 32, I will have been married 3 years.
Right.
By the time I'm 35, we have 2.5 kids, and so we just get sort of
Right.
stuck in this sort of looking at how the culture has traditionally been structured and thinking that we have to fit into those molds, and particularly if people feel like they have to live up to other people's expectations of themselves instead of focusing on their own happiness and their own expectations.
Well, what's really funny is I fell into that when I was 30 because I was the older unmarried sister in an Italian family, and I was really getting tired of going to the weddings and everybody looking at me with those pitiful eyes, thinking,
Oh.
something was wrong with me because I was the older unmarried Italian sister. And so I felt very, very pressured. I put the pressure on myself. Oh my God, it's my late 20s. Where's my, dream man and, my soulmate and yada, yada, yada. So by 30, I was married or 31. And by 35, I had my first child, 36, my second. But, would I have gone that path if I didn't put that self-imposed pressure on myself? I don't know. It was probably the only thing I've ever planned in my life was that I planned that, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. I have to get married and I have to start having children. Other than that, I've never planned a thing in my life. I just keep kind of seeing what happens next. So I agree. There are societal pressures that we feel that definitely impact us. And and there's no magic bullet for that. I can tell you not to let that impact you. Maybe just an awareness that everyone feels them, and it really is. You know what I found? Once people looked at me with their pitiful eyes and worried about why I wasn't married, they just went on with their own lives. It didn't. I stayed in their conscious awareness for a very short period of time, and they just went on with their own. So I would say to the people that are feeling the pressures of society, they have to do certain things by certain times, to realize that all those people are just more concerned about themselves than you anyway,
Right.
So if that can take a little pressure off of you.
Right.
And again, can I just go back to our magnificence? Can I go back to the amazing, beautiful, divine lights we are? If we could see the light that is shining from within us and all around us, we would see that a lot of what we concern ourselves with is so small in comparison to who we really are.
Yeah. Okay. So, Patricia, you, of many things, you call yourself a sacred storyteller. How did you come to call yourself that? How did you come to know that this was, helping other people share their stories was one of your callings, one of the things you were meant to do here on the earth plane. Talk to us a bit about the whole sacred storyteller.
Well, something that happened to me. So after I started my, the spiritual journey, I mean, I did feel some chaotic energy. I really didn't know which way to go. I kind of wanted to save the world, I wanted to bring spirituality to everyone. I feel like a lot of people feel that. And I wasn't really sure what my gift was. I know that you talk with the angels, you do dream analysis, you do many things. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I wanted to be really conscious of not saying I did any one thing unless I could really speak with authenticity and integrity, So I kept studying, I kept showing up, I kept experiencing, but I kept finding that I started putting a lot of pressure on myself because I was in this kind of uncomfortable void of not knowing what I was really supposed to be contributing now, maybe 2 years later. So even with the books and the radio show and so forth, I still was like, but I'm not really sure what that's all supposed to be yet, or who I am yet in this context, right? So what I realized was, somebody said to me, well, well, what have you always been good at? What have people have always come to you for? If you really want to try to figure out maybe a little deeper about what you could do, that you could offer, what are you already good at? And when I looked at it through that lens, which was such a profound and beautiful and simple way, right? And that can help people who are looking for their purpose, even though I tell you, you don't have one purpose, you have many, but that helps you find your many purposes along the way. So I realized that I'm really good at conversation. People always call me when they want to talk, right? I realized that even when I wrote my books, I wrote them as if I was just talking to a good friend. I was just telling my story. On the radio show, we were just telling people's stories. I was giving a voice to them. And when I started to really sit with that and look at it through that perspective, I believe I received what I believe is divine clarity. I just kind of heard and felt and knew all at the same time that I'm a storyteller, that I'm a sacred storyteller. And I call myself a sacred storyteller because we are sacred beings. So every story is a sacred story as far as I'm concerned, it speaks to the sacredness of us.
And do you find that people out there are eager to share and tell their sacred stories?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. On the Telesummit, that's part of the interview, is the speakers tell their sacred stories. And I have to say, they're so beautiful and so profound. And some people are so courageous in their ability to show up and kind of just, it's almost it's really truly in service to the greater good, because that's where our power is, that's where our connection is in the resonance of our stories. We feel it, right? When someone tells their story, it can inspire us, or it could challenge us, or it could comfort us, or we could say, oh my God, that same thing happened to me, and draw such courage and inspiration. So yeah, I find that is the most beautiful part of what I believe I do, is allow people a voice to share their stories.
And it connects us, yes. It makes us feel a part of each other's lives. And again, we can understand if we've gone through it, or we can feel for them if we haven't. But it just, connects the humanity of all of us together.
Without a doubt. On Sacred Stories, we say that we're not only writing our individual sacred story, we're writing the shared story of the greater collective. And it's so true. So let's write our sacred story well, we always say. Because my story is your story. It's just, that's just really how it is. There's that oneness that we all feel. We may not always see it, but we feel it. That connects us.
So there's the sacred story that we might have if we have oral communication. But tell us about your 2 books and how you can, tell us the title and what they're about, and how you came to write these books. Computer science teacher, published author.
Yeah, yeah, it's really crazy because I never planned on being a writer. I never had any aspirations to be a writer. And at the beginning of my spiritual journey, it's really funny. A lot of people started telling me I was to write books. And just out of the blue, I would go to have my chakras balanced, and they would stop at the throat chakra and say, I hear your story. I hear your story, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, you're supposed to write books. And I'm like, okay. And, I would be getting the message over and over again without ever voicing anything. And I'm like, I don't know what this is all about. But one night, I actually received, the best I can describe it, a spiritual download. And I saw myself, I was asleep, but I saw myself awake. And I saw the top of my head being lifted back, kind of like a pot with the an attached lid, and I saw all this information just pouring into my head, and it just looked like numbers and letters and just information. But as it was going into my head, I literally was shown chapter by chapter what to write my book on, and then within a couple days after that, I was actually given the title. Heard this very specific voice speaking to me, and it gave me the title, God is in the Little Things. So the day after I had that download, the first download, as divine timing would have it, I was teaching at the time. It was the first day of winter break. And I literally sat in bed for 4 days, and I just kept writing, 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 writing. I didn't even know how to write. I just kept writing, 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 and eventually it turned into a book. Obviously I had a lot of editing help, but and it was just one of those experiences that I couldn't do anything else. I was just so strongly guided, and it was just such a powerful compulsion that I had to produce this. And I did. And actually, that was the impetus to quit my job, because I said, I can't work full time and just do this part time. I need to give this all of my focus. I don't know what exactly it's going to look like, but I know this is where I need to be.
And tell the viewers the focus of the first book.
So the first book, excuse me, it's my true story, and it's animal totems. What had been happening is, for a period of time, animals had been visiting me in the physical sense, repetitively, uniquely, really extraordinary, some of them very extraordinary, and I really wasn't aware of what was happening at first. I just thought some of it was just really bad luck, because a lot of them were in my house, and that's not where I would want these animals to be. But through the process, and actually through one of my cats, Misty, who his passing actually led me to a book on animal totems, and I started reading it, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is what's been happening to me. And understanding, and as more and more animals appeared, I still didn't know that was supposed to be my story that everybody kept saying, until I had the download, and I was literally shown, this was my first book.
Oh, wow. So share one example of one animal that visited you that also ended up in the book.
Okay, so the one that I like to share is the one of the toad. So it was one spring morning, and I was divorced, and I was in my bedroom, and I was sleeping on my same side of the bed. So if you've ever been in a relationship that for some reason ended, I think everyone can relate. What I realized is, after a period of time, I guess you would think that you just spread out across the bed, but you don't, right? You stay in your space, right? I stayed on my side probably for many months, until, I don't know, at some point I felt comfortable enough to kind of move my toe over a little bit and go, maybe I'll stretch out a little bit. It's really an amazing process. I didn't realize it until I experienced it. But at this point, I was still sleeping on my side of the bed by myself. And I woke up one morning, and this was during the time that I was really feeling probably at my lowest. When I would say I was in definitely a depressed state. And so I lived in, at the time, a 2-story house, and my bedroom, the master bedroom, was the furthest one down the hall on the second floor. So to get in my house, you had to go up either 1 flight or 2 flights of stairs, and you had to go down the hall and into my bedroom. I always slept with my door shut. That's just something that I do. And I woke up one morning, and very, very, very light sleepers, as any parent will know, we're very light sleepers after we've had children. and I had a slat bed. So I'm just kind of setting the stage. So I had a slat bed that had like a 4 foot high headboard that was maybe only 3 inches wide, and it was just all vertical slats leading up to it. So I woke up one morning and I got out of bed and something caught my eye, and it was directly above where I was sleeping. And I know that because I knew where I slept the position was. And I got up and I was like, what the heck? Like, how did a rock get on my headboard? It was not there when I went to bed. And I went to reach for it, half asleep still, and I went to reach for it, but it wasn't a rock. It was actually this giant, large, living, breathing toad, bigger than my hand, sitting on the top of my headboard directly above my head on the second floor down the hall in my house, which I don't keep windows open and I don't keep doors open, and animals would not routinely come in my house. But somehow this very large toad made it up 1 or 2 flights of stairs, down a hall, not only up onto my bed, but up onto my headboard, and positioned himself directly above my head.
I mean,
So
how did you react when you first saw this? Did
well,
it freak you out, or?
yeah, it freaked me out. I freaked out. I started calling one of my kids because I was more than I could handle. I was already in a very vulnerable, very upset, very depressed state, and it was just something I was like, this is more than I can handle. And I actually had to call one of my kids to take the toad out of the house and bring it back to the woods. But what's interesting about it is, well, of course, the animal had a message for me. And a toad's message is one of transformation, one of metamorphosis, right? Think of like the tadpole to the toad. So there's a lot in the message of the animal totems, which was really profound and important for me at the time. Somebody that I spoke to, actually interviewed at one point, was talking about, and now I'm going to forget the name, but it's actually a type of phenomenon where different animals or things will appear that were not there. So the thought that this giant toad got in my house unseen, up the stairs, down the hall, into my room, on my bed, like all of that without me ever noticing this animal or anyone or waking me up would be incredibly unlikely. And so there's a phenomenon, and I wish I could remember the name, where different things will just appear. Divine communication will just appear. And I believe that's actually what happened with the toad. It was a real toad, but I believe that it would just manifested itself there as a message.
Wow. Well, so folks, I can tell you read the book because there's all sorts of amazing stories there about the power of the animals, the animal realm, the animal world. So,
well, you know what I believe? I believe is that divine communication, the divine will communicate with us all the time in any way that we're open to. The animals are one of them. Angels are one way. Animals are one way. Music is one way. Colors or numbers or symbols are a way. So it really, I believe, is what we're open to. And I have a great love, especially for my cat. That's why I realized that I believe the animals came because of my love for the animals. And if we just invite divine communication and we start paying attention, we realize that it's everywhere at all times. We're never not connected. It's just a matter of whether we can acknowledge it.
Okay. So we go from this first great book with the animals, and then your second book focuses on the golden angels. So what are the golden angels, and what inspired you to write book number 2?
Well, again, it was just part of my spiritual journey and truly just divine guidance. And so as I was walking my spiritual path or looking, seeking, I was really a spiritual seeker at the time, a lot of different incredible, profound spiritual experiences started happening. And these golden beings kept showing up for me over and over and over again, starting actually with my first past life regression. Actually, my first past life regression, I started having what's called the lives between lives happen to me, where instead of like going back to the gate, I started walking because I saw my guides. And I saw this golden light off in the distance, and not having any idea what I was doing, my very first past life regression, didn't even know what a lives between lives was. All I know is I saw this golden light, and I was like, "Oh, what's that? I want to go see that." I was actually like a moth to a flame. I was drawn to it, to be quite honest. I couldn't not go to it. And the person doing the regression started trying to lead us back to the gate since the regression was over. And I'm like, no, no, I got to go to that light. I don't know what that is, but I have to go find out. And I got closer and closer and closer, and I could never see the face. But what I saw before I had to go back to the gate, because time was up, was this beautiful, magnificent golden angel, and with these beautiful wings, holding a sword, with his legs, apart, and holding a sword downward, and then golden being after golden being showing up, almost like on a dais on either side of this golden angel. And when I tell you that my heart was just blown wide open, and all I wanted to do was just go and go and go, and I was so upset when I couldn't, when she's like 2, 1, and I'm like, ah. And then I had to go back to the gate, and I didn't know. I mean, I had to, because it was my very first regression. I didn't really know what would happen if I didn't, so I had to go back. But as different experiences kept happening, I did, other past lives, I astral traveled, I had different types of healing meditations. These beautiful, beautiful, loving, golden beings just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And I realized after a period of time that they are my golden angels, that they are my golden friends. And that was the second story I was to write, the spiritual experiences. And all of the love and the support. So I feel like the first book is about how we're all connected, the oneness and the communication. And my second book is really a testament to the love and the support that is with us at all times. We're fully supported.
And can you tell us what your third book is going to be about?
Well, my third, actually, thank you for asking. It's a little bit. It's not it's not the third book of this series. It's actually a little bit different. It's called Sacred Musings of the Soul, and will be a compilation for me and a couple of one of my spiritual brothers and sisters of our soul, of what our souls want to say. Short, to multi-stanza. Poetic or just contemplative writings, which I believe will be very, very inspiring and bring hopefully much peace and joy to many people.
Well, talk about where people can get your books. Get ready, folks, because it's a really long list, and you have to think back to someone who was a few years ago, wonderfully teaching science to now writing these amazing books and manifesting that they're going to be available, or they are available in so many different places, and I mean literally all over the world. So it's just very exciting to see that. So can you tell the viewers a little bit about that? Just it'll inspire people. There's a lot of people out there pursuing their dreams or writing books, and and one thing I have to say I've always admired about you, Patricia, is you are one of those people that don't say it can't happen. I'm the same way with something. The best way for me to really plow through and do what I'm envisioning is for someone to tell me that it can't happen. That's the worst thing you can tell me.
Well, thank you for asking. Well, I really feel like my books are being just carried in the arms of the angels. That's the visualization that I have. So my books have been picked up by 10 national chains. So you can find them on Amazon, or you could get signed copies from my website, patriciabooks.net. Or you could go to any number of chains, Walmart, Kmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, CVS, Walgreens. I mean, they're in 10 of the Hudson's, they're in 10 chains.
Costco,
Costco, oh yeah, Costco, Sam's Club, thank you. Costco, yeah, there's 10 of them, which is really pretty amazing. And in addition to that, I've just found out that Italy and China have picked up my book, so we're going international, and I'm anticipating, many more countries. It kind of goes country by country. So whether you're, in the U.S. or international, you can get them online or in a number of stores. So it's really exciting.
Oh, absolutely. So many congratulations on that. That's a great accomplishment. Great accomplishment. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like again, it just goes back to the magnificence of our divine essence. You know, it really is about just kind of stepping into the fullness of who we are. Because when we do that, then I know that there is truly nothing. We're when I say carried in the arms of the angels, I believe that. I believe that because it doesn't make any sense to me that we would come to this three-dimensional world and incarnate for anything less than magnificence. You know.
Ah, it's wonderful, really wonderful. So I want to talk a few minutes about your sacred story, your telesummit. So you were saying at the beginning of the show, you're like, telesummit, what's that? And now here you are. I think you're about to or wrapped up your second, and you're going to have a third one soon. So
Yeah.
how did you get from what's a telesummit to being extremely successful in hosting and running a telesummit program? Maybe
Well,
tell people what telesummit is, just in case someone out there isn't aware.
okay, so well, that's fair because I wasn't for a period of time. It's an online kind of teleseminar, right? So it's on the internet and it's currently all audio, so where you could either call or connect through your computer. So it's a multi-day. The first two were 28 days each. This third one, we'll be starting the third one in January, is 21 days. But it is it's literally following my heart. It's literally following divine guidance. It was just saying, you know, what feels right? What's the next evolution? Somebody one day mentioned, well, you should do a telesummit. And I said, what's that? And then I checked into it and I said, oh, yeah, of course I should do a telesummit. That just felt right. Like it just felt, it goes to the resonance to really truly connect. What really feels right, what feels good, what feels right and true, I believe we should always follow. So even though I didn't know how I was going to do it and maybe it didn't make a lot of sense to my head, to my heart, I go, oh my God, of course, that feels good. I'm going to do that. So it's called Sacred Stories, and each one has a different theme. So the first one was Awaken to Your Sacred Self. The second one that just wrapped up, which is in replays if people want to check it out, it's sacredstoriestelesummit.com, and it'll be in replays till the end of December. And the third one will be Live Your Sacred Wellness. And it's just a beautiful gathering of spiritual teachers and healers that I'm honored that will come on my show, and they share they share their sacred stories, they share their abilities, they take live Q&A, and then they always have a special offer that, if people want to go deeper with the work with the speakers, they can.
And
So,
so you found it to be a fulfilling and worthwhile experience, I take it to.
I have to say the emails that I get from my listeners, or they write into the queue expressing gratitude for how much they are they're moving forward, or they're receiving peace or healing. I tell the story. It happened just this series where this woman wrote me an email saying that she was contemplating suicide, and then she asked God for a sign, and the next thing she saw was the email about sacred stories. And so she
Wow.
started listening to the replays, and something she said inside of her, her inner world shifted, and now she's happy to be here. I mean,
Wow. How more poignant can that be? I mean, I would think something like that, and you're like, yeah, this is why you're following your path. You're following your purpose. You're here to help people. You're here to be of service, and you found for you this wonderful way to be of service.
it really is. That's a great way to say it because that's what I feel like. And I feel like that we are all in service to each other, truly. If we can show up or at least have an awareness or a consciousness that is, I believe, our role. So what is our mission? What is our mission? If we really want to give ourselves a mission, if it has to be one big thing, then I would say the one big thing would be to be in service to each other.
And I mean, I can't think of any other time. There's always turmoil going on in the world, but it seems so intense right now, or the last few years. And so I think programs like what you're doing provide a really needed service for healing. We need to
Yeah.
heal, and we can't really heal alone. I think we need each other to go through that healing process and to be with each other and to share with each other and to talk with each other. And so through your books and through your radio show that you had or your telesummit, you have fashioned a way to really collectively bring us all together. And I think that's an incredible and amazing service you're doing for the world.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, you too with the show that you're doing. I do. I feel it's important. And I feel it's important also because there's many people who are feeling the stirrings of their soul. There's many people who are awakening, or their spiritual abilities are starting to really manifest or come to the surface. And we need community. We need people to be able to say, it's okay. Hey, come with me. Let me hold your hand, even virtually, and, you're not alone. I think that is so important. So not only for people to step into their sacred power. Many people are, and we need to do that together.
Well, and to reaffirm for each other that each of us are valid, each of us are worthy, each of us are divine.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do. I mean, I guess a person could do that to and for themselves, but just to do it in a safe space and with like-minded people raises the vibration for all of us, and so it's really an important thing for us to be doing.
Yeah, and if I could just say with that, I think it's really important because we talk about this on Sacred Stories also. I fully acknowledge and honor a person's individual journey, and I think that's important. You have to figure the me out, right? There's the period of time that you have to take and say, what's this all about? Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing now? But then at some point, you have to step into the we. You have to step into service. You have to realize that it is greater than you, that the need is greater than you, that we need everyone to step into their power, their sacred power, and become part of the we, be in service to each other. That is so important. So,
critically so.
Yeah. So that's the shout out I'd like to give everyone this evening is we need you. We need you. The we is here, and you have a place in it.
Yeah. Well, that was a wonderful segue because can you believe it? Our hour is up. Where does the time go? So Patricia, thank you, Reverend Patricia Brooks. Thank you so much for honoring me again. Patricia was on the show a year ago, so again, just so inspiring to see where you started, but you started from a wonderful place, but to see where you have come to and what you are accomplishing, and then I can only imagine if I have you back on in a year, what you will have accomplished. You'll probably be, you'll be in some other country talking to you from there, which would also be amazing. But I thank you so much for being who you are and serving the way you serve and spending your time with all of us tonight. And before we go, I would like you to, once again, just tell people how they can reach out and contact you after the show if they'd like to.
Absolutely. So my website is patriciabrooks.net, and the telesummit is sacredstoriestellesummit.com. And I'd love for people to reach out, email me, connect in many different ways.
Email and go into any store, and her books will be there. Guys and the little things.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Patricia. Totally appreciate it. And those of you out there, I want to thank you so much again for joining me. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner. And I want you to remember it's all about bliss, BLISS. Believe life is something special because it is, and so are you. You can connect with me at www.positivebliss.com, and I encourage you to take a walk through the landscape of positivity. I assure you, you're going to completely embrace what you find there. So until next time, I'll see you again right here on The Positivologist is in the House. Many blessings and namaste.